Hello, everybody. Welcome to our January 2026 quarterly Provide training call. Today, we're going to talk about entering service units and some other parts and pieces that go along with that. After this presentation, you will be able to do all of the things mentioned here. Find a client, understand when and how to register a client, transfer a client to or from another agency, create a client service profile, enter services, pull service reports, troubleshoot when you have a report that doesn't add up, and close out a client. Let's talk about finding, registering, and sharing first. What you can see in Provide depends on your security settings and your user role. If you work with multiple programs, it is important to remember that you must be in the program profile and security settings to see that program's data. Current profile is where the data can be entered, and current reporting scope is what data you can see. If you need help, reach out to our team and we can walk you through it. I'm sure most of you are familiar with how to find a client, but I like to remind everyone about the different identifiers you can search with. You can use any of the identifiers on this screen, and Provide does allow for a wildcard, which is an asterisk. If you're in a text field and not sure about the full information, for example, you have a client named Margaret, but she goes by Maggie, and you aren't sure which first name was entered into Provide, you can type in MA asterisk, and it will pull up all of the Margarets and Maggies. I will also take this moment to say that we do need the client's full legal name in Provide. So you put in your search parameters and hit enter. If there are any clients who match your search, they will show up in the list at the bottom of the screen. If you see the client you're looking for, click on the record to highlight it, and then double-click to open the client's profile. If you don't see the client you're looking for in the list at the bottom, or if there's no list at the bottom, you want to go ahead and register them. Just click on Actions at the top, then click on Register Client. It will open the registration form. You have to fill in everything that has an asterisk, but we recommend going line by line to fill in as much information as you can. Then you have to click on the Consent tab and upload the signed client consent form. When you finish with the form, click on Register Client. If there is a client record in the system that matches or closely matches, the registration record will come to VDH to verify the match and open the client profile to your agency, or approve the registration and creation of a new client profile. When those registration requests come to VDH for approval, it can be hard to track. We requested an update to the Provide system that allows you to now see what you've submitted and if it's approved or rejected. You just click on View, then Clients, and then Open Client Requests, all by status. This view allows you to see if they are approved or rejected without having to search for the client or wonder which client a rejection message is about. If your agency has more than one program using Provide, it is a best practice to register a client under Care and then share them with other programs and/or agencies. This allows you to search for the client under either program profile. To share a client between programs or agencies, you will need to create an informed consent record. While in the client's profile, you'll click on View Informed Consent History. That's going to let you see if there are any active informed consent records and add one if needed. The example here shows that the client has one active informed consent record where VDH, or the From agency, is sharing the client with UVA Care Services, or the To agency. If you need to add an informed consent, you click on the white sheet of paper that says Add Informed Consent Record. While you have to enter the items with an asterisk, we again recommend that you go line by line. Some lines have default answers you may want to change. The first default is fine, and that's the type of release. That will always be provide enabled. Then you're going to click on the period at the right of the destination organization, and it will bring up the list of agencies and programs you can share the client to. Make sure you pay attention to the program, since what you choose here will fill in the agency and the program at the same time. The client's signature should be on file since they have to sign our consent form to be registered. The status will be active since we're setting this informed consent up. The start date will default to the day you're setting it up, but can be backdated to see eligibility assessments or other documents if you know one was created prior to the date you're adding this informed consent record. For example, if the client had a UEA in March and you're setting this informed consent record up in June, you can put in March 1st so the system allows you to see that UEA. Then Release Client Profile must be set to Yes. The next three items should be decided on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the minimum necessary rule. If an agency or program only needs to access certain parts of the client profile, respond to these accordingly. If they need full access, then Release Client Service Profile and Client Contacts are helpful, so we recommend setting them to Yes. Release activity documents can be answered as all, none, or selective. If you choose selective, you can specify what you want to share. Once everything is filled out, click on Close and then Save. The agency and program you shared the client with will be able to see the client immediately, but it may take up to an hour for everything in the client's profile to be visible to them. Okay, now that you've established the client profile, we can move on to entering services. Entering the most accurate and complete service data is very important because not only do we make decisions on how the program needs to adapt and change, but our data also tells the story of our program through the RSR. Some agencies enter services directly into Provide, and others enter services into Careware, which are then imported into Provide. We're going to walk through entering them directly into the Provide system. Before you enter a service, you need to think about whether it is for medical or non-medical case management, because those two require an additional step. When you click on the Profiles tab, you'll see the two sections. One is Client Service Profiles, which are automatically created when a client is registered to your agency or shared with an informed consent record. The other section is for Client Service Category Profiles. There are two categories that require a profile, and those are medical and non-medical case management. To create the service category profile, while in the client profile, you click on the Profiles tab. Then click on the paper icon next to New Client Service Category Profile Record. We recommend you start at the top and move your way to the bottom. While the only required field is the service category, you want to be sure any default information is correct. You click on the dot to the right of the service category line to see the list of categories. Place a check mark in the box next to the category you need and click OK. After verifying and entering the remaining fields, click Close and then Yes to save the record. While you're in the client profile, you need to click on Create and then click on Service Provided. The status will default to Pending. Provider defaults to your name, but you can change it if you're entering data for multiple case managers. You just click on the dot at the right to get the provider list you can choose from. Like every form in Provide, you have to enter a value for all lines with a red asterisk. So be sure to enter the service date, and then you're going to click on the dot to the right of Service Category to see the list of services. You can scroll through this list to find the service category, the service name, and the funding source. You have to make sure you have those three things matching, because once you highlight the record and click OK, it will populate the three corresponding lines in the service provided form. The remaining information does not have the red asterisk. However, we recommend reviewing it to make sure the default information is what you want it to say. The units of service defaults to 1. Remember to use the service standards to determine the number of units you need to enter. For example, 15 minutes working with a non-case managed client for Unified Eligibility Assessment Assistance is equal to 1 unit. The unit of measure gets filled in based on the service category. You can enter the unit cost of service, but keep in mind that the total cost of service will update based on how many units of service are entered. There is an option to mark the service as a telehealth visit, and then a spot for you to type out any comments you think are relevant. The last step to finish the entry is to mark the service as complete or not provided. Remember though, when you mark it complete, you cannot edit it. You will have to delete it and start over. So make sure your data entry is complete and accurate before clicking on complete or not provided. If you choose not provided, you'll need to also choose the reason it was not provided. After clicking to finish the service entry, you might get an error or an alert. Let's talk about those. The first one we should discuss is the service provided complete error. This will pop up when you try to complete a service for a client who doesn't have an open service category profile for the type of service you're entering. This pops up for medical and non-medical case management. You can continue by clicking on OK, then click on Close and Save. That saves the service data entry and allows you to go create that service category profile and then go back to mark the service complete. It will be in the View PLWH activity, Services Provided Pending queue. Remember to complete all pending services so they will show up on your RSR. The next alert is the Service Validation Alert. The Service Validation Alert will pop up when you try to enter any service that the client is not eligible for on the date of the service you're entering. Most of the time, we see this when the client doesn't have an eligibility assessment or the client is enrolled in Medicaid. When you see this error and you click Yes to save the entry, it saves as a pending service. It can be seen in the client's activity and will be listed in the Services Provided Pending queue. Just a reminder, you need to complete all pending services so they will show up on your RSR. Here's how to get to that view. Click on View at the top of the screen, then on PLWH Activity, and then on Services Provided Pending. For those of you who use Careware when services are imported into Provide, if something is not matching up 100%, it will go to this queue. So Careware users need to check this on a regular basis. Now that you have entered your services, let's talk about the reports you can use to look at your data. If you click on Reports at the top of the screen and then click on Run, it will pull up the list of reports you have access to. This screen is what some will see, but it can vary by user. The first report you will likely see is the Care Services Summary Report. To get this form, click on the report name to highlight it, and then double-click to open it. Choose the start and end date and the agency, and then click OK. This is what the report looks like. It shows the number of clients served and the units of service. It will show the most recent month on the left, and then the full date range you entered on the right side. The data is broken down by service category. Next is the Service Utilization Report. Similar to the Care Service Summary Report, you fill in the form with the parameters you need. So you enter the start and end dates, then click on the agency name in the Available Values side to highlight it. Then you're going to click on the single arrow to move it to the Selected Values side. Then you click on OK to run the report. If you are a contract monitor or services coordinator and need to pull the report for multiple agencies, you can. If you do select more than one agency, the top portion of the report will show the combined data. Below that, each individual agency will be shown. If you only choose one agency, the data will be the same in both the top and the bottom sections. This report shows the number of clients served and then a count of service units for each service category. While both reports count services, the 5 lines shown here are only available on the Service Utilization Report. The other difference is the Care Service Summary Report shows the most recent month in addition to the time frame you enter, while the Service Utilization Report only shows the time frame you enter. You pulled those reports, but the counts don't seem to be correct. Let's talk about how to investigate and figure out what's needed to fix that data. The first thing to do is to make sure all of the pending services have been processed. Go to View, PLWH Activity, and click on Services Provided Pending. If you get a list, each one of those needs to be clicked into and either completed or marked as not provided. Once you clear that list, check your reports again. If you process all your pending services and the data is still not matching, you can pull the RSR. Not everyone will have access to this report. Ask your supervisor if you need help. You go to View, Reporting, Report Templates by Title. Then click on Create Template. You're going to highlight the most recent RSR template. When creating this training, the most recent template was for 2020, but we should see a new one added soon. You want to fill out the form, but when you're troubleshooting, you want to find the smallest sample possible, so you have fewer clients to review when searching for the data issue. So instead of selecting all services, you need to choose the service that has the discrepancy. If you can narrow down the time frame for when that discrepancy occurs, you can put in a small date range around that date. Be sure to update where you want your output file to save. Click on Compile Client Data at the top and wait for it to tell you it's finished. You'll get a pop-up alert. Then you want to click on Export Client Level Data. This will export a text file to the location you chose. I think it's easier to view this data in a spreadsheet, so I usually open the text file, click on Edit, then select All, and right-click to copy. Then I open an Excel workbook and paste it in. The report may not give you a date of service that is within the range you chose, but the client in the report did have that service during the time frame. The report always gives you the first date of the service. You'll need to go into the client profile to check the service data entry or any other information that might be causing an issue. Pulling the RSR is the only way to get client-level data without a formal data request made to VDH. This slide just shows us going into the client profile. You can see a snapshot of client services by clicking on View and then Activity while in the client profile. Just click on the plus sign to expand the information in the category you want to see. Here, we're looking at Service Provided. It'll show you each service the client received. So you can click on the Service Provided category. It shows you that the client had a psychosocial service on June 20th of 2024, just like the report said, and then another one on December 31st of 2024, which is within the date range of the report. Double-click on the record to open the service and check the data entry. A few things to keep in mind about the data in your RSR. Psychosocial support is the only service that will pull into the RSR for clients who do not have an active Unified Eligibility Assessment. If a client doesn't have current eligibility and you complete a service anyway, after getting the alert telling you the client isn't eligible, that client and service will not show on your RSR. If a service is in pending status, it will not show on the RSR regardless of a client's eligibility status. If you follow these steps and investigate the issues, but still can't find what needs to be changed, you can request a client line list from the team by emailing the VA Provide inbox. Just allow at least 2 weeks for that request to be processed. One of the most frequent questions we receive is, how do we close out a client in Provide? Let's talk about it. There are 3 reasons to close a client in Provide. The first is if the client is deceased. Then, if the client is no longer eligible for the program, you want to make sure that is recorded. And the last one is when a client transfers their care to another agency. Each one of these requires a few different steps, so we will go through each one. When a client passes away, you want to document their death in their client profile. When you have that profile pulled up, click on Action and then on Document Death. You need to fill in the date of death and the source of the information. There's also a place to enter any notes if you have any. Then you click on Close and Yes to save the information. Next, you need to terminate their Ryan White eligibility by clicking on Action and then on Eligibility Termination. Fill in the date terminated effective with the date of death. Then choose Other as the reason terminated. Click on OK to save and close. Then you will need to close all of the open service profiles for your agency. You do that by clicking on the Profiles tab, then double-clicking on the Open Client Service Profile record for your agency. When that form opens, click on Close and then fill in the reason for closure, the date close effective, and the close status. Click on OK. You need to close all the open service profiles for your client. For clients who are no longer eligible for the program, that usually means they have an update to one of the categories of eligibility. To record this change, you want to open the client profile, click on Edit, which will give you a big update button on the Address, Finances, and Health Benefits tabs. Pick the tab where the client's information needs to be updated. We'll use Moving Out of State as an example here. So click on the Update button on the Address tab. Fill in the new information, upload your supporting documentation, and answer all of the questions. Then click on Submit and Complete. Doing this will update the client's eligibility to show No for all services on the Eligibility tab. Next, you need to terminate their Ryan White eligibility. While in their profile, click on Action and then Eligibility Termination. Fill in the date terminated effective and choose Other as the reason terminated. Click OK to save and close. If a client is still program eligible and transferring their care to another agency, the first thing you need to do is close all of the open service profiles for them. You click on the Profiles tab, then double-click to open the client service profile record for your agency. If there's more than one, you'll need to close each one. Click on Close at the top and then fill in the reason for closure, the date the closure is effective, and the close status. Then click on OK to save the information. Then you're going to close all open informed consent records for your agency. Go to View, then Informed Consent History. Expand the Active section to see any active informed consent records for your agency. You'll need to open each record for your agency and close it out. When you open them, you might see Terminate or you might see Rescind, and in some cases, you may see both. In the slide, Destination Agency is the agency the client is being shared with. So if you register a client, you will most likely see that VDH is the originating or from agency that shares the client with the destination or to agency, which would be your agency. Most often, you want to choose Terminate since that maintains access to the client file, but updates to the client will stop as of the date the informed consent ends. If Rescind is the only option, you should choose that if you need to remove the client from your RSR and client matrix. To confirm that the client is closed, you can check the following things. For deceased clients, they will have a status that says deceased in the matrix views. Program ineligible clients will have an eligibility end date that mirrors the date of your update, and all eligibility categories on the Eligibility History tab will say no. For clients who are no longer seen at your agency, the client will show a status of closed in your matrix view, and the client will no longer pull into your RSR. Just to recap, we went over how to find, register, and transfer clients, how to build service profiles and record services provided. We talked about pulling service data reports and troubleshooting any discrepancies. And we closed it out with how to close clients in Provide. We appreciate you taking the time to listen and hope that you are able to learn something new today. As always, if you have any specific training needs or questions about Provide, please reach out to the VA Provide Help Team or the trainers by emailing the VA Provide inbox. That's VAPROVIDE at vdh.virginia.gov. Thanks so much.